Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace episode 201. We got over the hump, Matt. Past the big zenith. The new site is out there and launched. We got a bunch of new shows. We just put up a new episode of Sifted HQ this morning. If you guys remember, we just launched that show last Tuesday with 200. The new episode up today. There also should be a new episode of Spoiled coming up here in another day or two. I'm not going to spoil what movie or TV show that is or who's going to be on it, but look for that a little bit later this week. I do want to thank everybody for all the kind words about everything that we've done. The website, the GameFace overhaul, the new content that we've added. Pretty much the response has been overwhelmingly positive, which on the internet in 2020 is a rarity. So thank you guys. I also want to thank the people who have actually sort of dug through the site and found little issues. We are in the process of fixing all that stuff and getting it all handled. Probably the most common complaint I think we got was that the site was running a little slow, and that was accurate for the first few days. We found the problem, and it was fixed yesterday, so now it's running like butter, which is awesome. Most of the other issues were really small. We had some issues with certain browsers, like people changing the background color on the site. Little stuff, none of the big stuff, which could be a major problem. So Brent is a superstar. I don't know if he's on the stream today, but it's amazing what Brent did. We had very little QA before the site went live, and honestly, way fewer issues than I thought that we would have. So Brent's a genius. I think we knew that already. He did an amazing job on the site redesign and the site rebuild. Still more stuff is coming. We've just kind of taken the last week to kind of get everything that's currently live working and fixed up to optimal ability. And then over the next week or two, we'll start adding some of the stuff we've been talking about. But thanks to everybody who retweeted whenever we said we relaunched the site. That stuff means a lot to us. It makes a big difference. We did have a nice influx of new users for the first few days, which is great. We have not started our marketing campaign yet for Sifted 2.0.
There's a marketing campaign?
There will be, absolutely. Yeah, we have a budget for marketing that was kind of baked in all along. I've been talking, actually.
I hope we get wrapped buses.
No. It's not, it's more like Facebook ads, Matt.
Right.
Although, maybe I could use an image of a wrapped bus in the Facebook ads. I've actually been talking to a couple sifters who work in digital marketing, one in the UK, one in the US, to try to make sure that we're maximizing the money that we spend on marketing. But honestly, the best marketing of all is just word of mouth. So if you guys love the site, if you love GameFace, if you love Pactor Factor, if you love Sifted HQ, whatever you like, retweet it, tell people about it, share it on Facebook. All that stuff adds up. It makes a big difference for us. So
maybe we can get a wrap bus at E3.
Yeah, that's possible.
If E3 happens.
If it happens. We'll get to that. We're going to talk about the coronavirus, the biggest story in the world right now, hands down, and we're going to talk about it here.
Washed hands down.
Yeah, exactly. And let's toss to our man on shower duty today. That's Mitch Sikorsky. What's going on, Mitch?
Hey, what's up, guys? Nothing much.
That's a better angle.
Yeah. Well, last week we barely had time. It was a mad scramble. Honestly, this still isn't what Sifted is supposed to be. This isn't GameFace. This isn't GameFace 2.0 yet. There are plans for GameFace in the works as far as how I don't want to spoil it, but we've been having massive technical issues trying to get it to work, and I worked on it all week and still don't have them ironed out. So here we are still kind of in our old style. However, the show, as we talked about earlier, is in fact going to be about an hour and a half today. So I wish us luck with that. People watching the show, first of all, it takes some doing to take a show that's normally around 3 hours and get it down to an hour and a half. There's going to be some bumps in the road. For those of you watching, I'm not mad at Matt if I cut him off. I'm not being a jerk. We're just trying to get the show down to a time, and it's something both of us are going to have to learn to try to get down to that time. So we're used to just saying whatever we want, and when we're done stopping, we're going to have to curb that a little bit for the new form of GameFace. But anyway, here we are in March. Finally, it feels like the world has stopped ending for video games. We don't have any big games.
Well, hi, March.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have any gigantic games that are out for review for this week's show, but we do have a really big game to talk about.
Yeah, I wanted to play Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, but it didn't go up on the PSN store until this morning for some reason. It couldn't pre-order. You literally couldn't pre-order it on the U.S. store.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was about. There was some speculation it was related to the character pass that was going up at the same time in Japan, and they didn't want to spoil anything or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that'll be next week, I guess.
Yep. But yeah, starting next week, we'll start talking about big games, and probably from then it'll rolling out. I'm glad that
We're within visual distance of Doom.
Yeah, we are. I'm glad, and Animal Crossing. I'm glad that we're doing this show first to try to cut the time down before we have a bunch of games to talk about. So it'll help us kind of understand how to shape each discussion to get it in X amount of time. So here we are, GameFace 201. Hope you guys are doing great. I hope none of you guys have the coronavirus, and that transitions nicely into our first topic. So I started hearing really early last week that GDC was going to be canceled through the grapevine, through some connections that I have. And then the cancellations started rolling in. A couple of the guys tried to stand pat and continue to be at GDC. Once other publishers started bailing, then it was just like dominoes and everybody bailed. So GDC officially has been postponed to summer. Matt, is GDC canceled?
Probably.
Yeah, it's canceled.
In part because, like, you can't double up on that with E3 being there, assuming E3 also doesn't get canceled. I don't think E3 will be canceled because people paid for tickets and the ESA isn't going to want to refund that shit.
I mean, GDC is in the same boat.
Yeah, but GDC is industry, though. It's not public. If public pay for tickets, I don't think it's going to get canceled. Comic-Con's not going to get canceled either. WonderCon's not going to get canceled. DragonCon's not going to get canceled.
I saw Andrea Renee last night, one of our colleagues, say that she has to eat her flights and everything up to San Francisco because the cancellation came on such short notice that you can't get refunds for your flights. So there's a lot of people who are going to lose a lot of money, not the least of which is GDC. How do you recover from having an entire year off from your biggest event of the year?
I don't know.
It's tough.
I mean, this is happening kind of all around. The Olympics might get canceled.
I know.
If things get too bad.
I know.
Now, I don't, it's an interesting situation just because we don't know a lot about the virus and how sick it makes people outside of, like, the immunocompromised and older people. There have been 6 deaths in the Seattle area. I believe 5 of those have been older or immunocompromised people. Like, so it is a threat. The mortality rate is estimated around 2%, which compared to the flu is 0.1%.
Yeah, so it's like hundreds of times more.
That's a huge. I mean, and in the end, like, we don't know if people are getting mild symptoms. They don't know they have it. It might be more around 1%, but that's still a gigantic number for something that they expect 40 to 70% of the human population to contract in the next 12 months.
I do find it weird.
So I understand like what they're talking about here, but like, we're all gonna get it. Like, it's so transmissible that, like, it's that's just until there's a vaccine. Like, we're just sort of gonna have to ride the ragged edge of disaster.
Well, I mean, we're gonna all get it, and we're gonna fight it off for most of us. That's not gonna happen for everyone. 2% doesn't sound like much, but it's a lot
at scale. And also keep in mind that the estimates right now for someone over 65 is more like 30% mortality rate, which that's scary. Gigantic.
I think about my mom.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you do get it, don't hang out with your parents.
Yeah.
We're talking about something that, because of that age-related mortality factor, you are talking about something that would change civilization.
No, I know.
I know. Like, if this doesn't get handled within a year, like we're talking about, it could be cold, flu, and COVID-19. Corvid is a
COVID-19.
That's right.
Yeah.
It could be the new normal, which is not a good normal.
I am surprised they canceled GDC because I just went to see the Penguins play the Kings last Wednesday with 25,000 people from all over the world.
I mean, I'm going to Disneyland tomorrow.
It's
YOLO.
Like, why am I going to a hockey game and no one cares? But some other things people do care.
I don't know.
Why is that?
Well, I kept thinking, I know this isn't true, but like, I kept thinking about how when Sony canceled on like PAX and people were like, they just didn't want to go.
Right. Yeah. It's possible.
It's just, there's a little bit of that, I guess. And also, like, it's just people are panicking a little bit. Like, you can't get hand sanitizer in Los Angeles right now. It's gone. It's all gone.
How about we leave it for the people who need it?
Right.
How about, like, us people who are younger don't buy that stuff and let the old people and the really young who need it get it?
Yeah, we just need soap, really.
People are so freaking selfish. It drives me bonkers. Anyway, I was surprised to see them cancel it personally, but I had been hearing for days that it was going to be canceled. I had kind of hinted at that in one of the blurbs on the site. And then days started passing, and I was like, oh, maybe I got bad information. I'm going to look bad. Nope. I was right. It just took them a long time to finally come to the decision. Matt, would you have any reservations about going to GDC right now?
No, I was actually thinking about doing that to see some people.
Me either. I don't understand what's going on.
I mean, again, I'm a youngish, healthy. I don't have any immune system. I haven't had the flu since I was 10. I'm very resistant to viruses, so I'm not too worried about it personally.
If I was over 60, would I go to GDC? No.
Yeah.
But they just don't go. You can still have it for everybody else. I don't want this to turn into something that ends GDC for good, because it could happen. Mm-hmm. What about E3, Matt? Is it going to happen?
I think it will. I mean, because I don't think the ESA is going to be willing to return everybody's ticket money from the public. And the public is not just going to eat that cost if it does get canceled, or I guess you could reschedule it to November, and it really will be E for All. Look that one up if you don't remember E for All.
Go to Wikipedia and look up E for All. We definitely don't want to go back there.
No. I mean, that's all I can think would be something like that. And I guess E3 would make sense to kind of be concerned about, in the sense that it's a giant international destination event. That puts you in the heart of a city that hasn't really had much of an outbreak situation yet. By then, who knows?
Yeah.
But I feel like LA can't escape that.
Oh, no way.
It's too much
inevitable.
International destination. There's too much shipping coming in out here and various tourism things.
Yeah.
But I don't.
Do you think people will go to E3 if they have it?
Yeah.
What if the paranoia by then is just ratcheted up so high?
There's always going to be people that just don't care and are the problem. Like the guy who posted a video earlier this morning, or maybe yesterday, about a guy who was going around like an open soup bar and just taking the ladles and drinking out of them and testing each soup. And it's just like, that's why we're all sick.
Yeah,
people.
You can't do that anymore.
But they do. But people do. There's always going to be that contingent of people that just don't get it.
Yeah.
Or don't understand germ theory, or don't believe in germ theory. There's a lot of that going around. I mean, the anti-vax movement is not going to help any of this.
How about they head on over to China? They can do all the research since they're not going to get it.
If you want to prove that, that's your chance.
That's a good way to do it. Here's your
prove
chance.
Germ theory's a hoax. There you go.
So anyway, this is going to be a continuing story. It seems like we curate at least one piece of content about the coronavirus every day on Sifted. I don't see it slowing down anytime soon, to be honest with you.
No, I mean, it's just the zeitgeist right now, and until we figure out what more about this thing, it's going to continue, and people are going to be increasingly nervous about being in large groups, basically.
Yeah.
The real solution, because it's so contagious and the incubation period is so long, estimated 14 days at times, you just have to wash your hands more than you're used to. Wash them correctly. 20 seconds.
Yeah.
That's
a long
all
time.
Over.
Yeah.
Hot or cold water, doesn't matter. And don't touch your face. The most likely way you're going to get this is by touching a surface that has the virus on it, and then touching your eye or touching your nose.
I trained myself to not touch my eyes years ago, and I have not been sick in years. That's how you get sick every time.
That is
when
much
you rub,
more likely.
If you're tired and you rub your eyes, that's how you get sick.
Yeah, even if you shake hands with someone who has it, you're probably good as long as you don't touch your face after you do
it has to get inside your body.
Yeah, it has to get in through some kind of orifice.
Yep. I hate that word.
And and the next word I'm going to use is moist.
Everybody hates that word.
But
that's also a condition that is conducive to.
And also remember just not to be paranoid about things like it is kind of a general flu. Coronaviruses are pretty common type of flu virus. I
saw an article about someone
SARS
who had it,
and MERS,
and she was like, "It's not bad at all."
Yeah, the trick
for people like us.
Yeah, but the trick to remember is that one of the defining characteristics of this one is a shortness of breath.
Yeah,
which flu doesn't usually give you.
That's true.
So if you do have trouble breathing, get thee to an ER.
Yeah, put a bag over your head and then go to the ER.
Yeah, it's that's your sign.
Yeah, yep. So anyway, I'm sure we'll talk about this again because it's not going to go away. We'll talk about it again as the ESA starts a message.
I mean, for once, Trump might actually have a point where he says that the warmer months might cause it to be less of a problem because warmer temperatures do generally shorten the lives of viruses outside of the body, and means we all go outside more. Like that's what causes cold and flu season, is that weather gets colder, everybody stays indoors together more. Has nothing to do with anyone being cold or wet. It's entirely because we are in closer contact with people in a concentrated environment more often.
Yeah.
So as summer happens,
temperature has no effect on viruses at all.
Happens,
bacteria it does, but not viruses.
As summer happens, you are going to see
Just
people
the
go out
social
more,
side
and
of it.
it'll be probably less immediate.
Yep.
But this thing's going to be with us for a while.
What's going to happen to the stock market? Ooh.
Good question.
Holy moly.
I mean, I do
My
know
401k is crying.
I know a few people in kind of high-level investment world stuff, and they are battening the hatches like 2008 style right now because they don't know. Because the problem is like it's all related to panic, and it's like it's not even how much you know the market or how much you know economics. Right now, it's about how much do you trust people not to lose their shit.
Yeah.
And a lot of these people I know are like, I don't trust them at all, and I think it's going to get real bad.
Yeah.
So buckle up.
Yep.
Which is bad news for anyone with a 401k.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. We'll come back to this again. I'm sure of it. The
it'll
ESA.
this is not the last event that's going to get affected by this.
Yeah, and I think the ESA will eventually have to come out and go on the record a little more officially with what it plans to do.
Yeah, hopefully in time for people to cancel some flights
That's
if
what
they
I'm
really
talking
decide
about.
to do that.
Exactly. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about a brand new game from a studio called People Can Fly. You may remember them. They are the studio behind Bulletstorm, which was like a combo-driven first-person shooter. They also made Gears of War Judgment, which was kind of the spin-off of Gears of War that was not done by Epic or at the Coalition. It was passable. It wasn't as good as other Gears, but it was passable. It was a rough facsimile of...
adequate.
Yeah, adequate. That's a good way to put it. It is working on a brand new game called Outriders, and it is a 4-person cooperative loot shooter with cover mechanics. Basically, it's the Division with Gears mixed with Gears of War. Although the Division, you could argue, is already mixed with Gears of War.
Yeah.
It's a cover-based
Thanks
shooter.
for that 58 gig update yesterday, Division 2. Jeez.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so that's out today, too,
Yeah.
the big expansion to the Division 2, and it's, what, $30, I think it
Something
is?
like that. I don't have it. I bought the base game for $3 the other week.
Yeah.
And haven't played it yet.
So the plot behind this is if these games really need plots, do they?
I mean, there's a bad thing, and they have red health bars, and you have to kill them
Until the red health bar is gone.
Before your green health bar goes away. That's basically the story.
So there is kind of a climate change eco angle to the story in this. The environment has gone south on Earth, and Earth is becoming uninhabitable, and it's your job to find a brand new place for humanity to survive. There is a plot in this game, and it is pretty story-driven. I don't know that I have played a loot shooter yet that had a decent story. Destiny, maybe?
I mean, a couple of the DLCs for Borderlands 2 I thought had fun stories.
Yeah.
I don't know if I call them good stories, but they were entertaining.
Yeah.
That's about as far as I'd go.
I also would argue that they're not all that important after the
certainly
first,
stuff like
20 hours.
Certainly stuff like Division and like the original Destiny, no.
Yeah. So, as I said, they are actually describing it as Gears of War meets Diablo. But do you think every other studio that makes loot shooters would call their game the same exact thing?
Pretty much.
I mean, that's really what the genre is. It's like, this does have cover-based mechanics, and it is third person instead of first person, which makes it a little bit more like Gears. But Gears meets Diablo, I mean, that's loot shooters.
Yeah, I mean, it's also Hellgate London, but I don't think anyone wants to compare their game to that. So.
People Can Fly said that they are actually getting tired of making shooters.
I can understand that.
Yeah, and they didn't want to make another one unless they felt like they could come up with an angle that would make it feel unique. And so
Good job.
Yeah, well, one thing that they have done, and one element of the game that they said they focused on, was they wanted to try to recreate trench warfare from World War I in a sci-fi shooter. And the basics of that is cover shooting, but there are actually sections, and we'll get to them eventually in this B-roll, where it actually is in trenches like it's World War I, where you can't really get the lay of the land and you don't know what's around the next corner. How do you like level design like that, Matt?
I mostly find it frustrating,
Yeah.
In part because trench warfare is not fun.
Yeah.
No warfare is fun, but
Right.
trench warfare in particular is, it's kind of like the problem with World War I was like no one could get in the ground. Like no one could do anything. Like it was like it's also a very specific situation where it was like the first modern war where like you didn't have tactics to get around a lot of these like things. You were using sort of old tactics mixed with new technology that sort of short-circuited each other, so no one could make any headway. And the idea that you would end up in that scenario with like a science fiction scenario is a little weird to me, because by definition you're going to have technology that can circumvent the idea of a trench. You know, like you are going to have artillery. You are going to have orbital bombardment. You are going to have some kind of way around the idea that the other guy is in a hole 15 feet from you. You know, like that's an odd way to go with this, I think.
Now, another thing that one of their focuses anyway was customization and flexibility. The customization options in this game are insane compared to most loot shooters. You create your own character from the beginning, and obviously as you collect loot, you get new stuff to adorn your character with. It's a tried and true gameplay loop for this
Although it's
genre.
interesting, because looking at the footage, I would never ever guess that.
Really?
Because they all
kind of look the same.
Yeah.
So you've been seeing here in this last bit of B-roll, you've been seeing the specials. And so the other thing that they wanted to make sure that they created, they wanted players to have a feeling that they were controlling superheroes. So they have kind of gone above and beyond with the specials and the finishers, and obviously being a sci-fi game helps with that. But, you know, compared to things like The Division, the attacks are a lot more elaborate. Each character is a lot different as far as how you can... It's not just everyone firing an M16 or an M1 Garand. The weapons, they did a stream just for the weapons in this game that lasted like 8 minutes long. So I think on that angle, it's kind of like Destiny more than kind of the other games in the genre. But I think it's looking pretty promising. I will say this, though, Matt. I'm getting to the point with this genre where I don't really get excited for them anymore when I hear that there's a new one. And I mean, that might just be saturation. I don't know 100% why I kind of have this negative attitude towards them. Or maybe it's because the last few I played haven't been great.
There's that. Also, there's nothing visually in this that makes me interested. Like, it's just terrain and lightning.
There's trenches, Matt.
And there's not, like... It looks like everything else.
And it does.
Which is silly, because there isn't really anything else that looks like the floating stuff with the lightning everywhere and all that shit. But it's like, I don't know. It's just, there's nothing here that jumps out at me and makes me go, oh, I want to be there. I want to experience it. I want to see what that is. There's nothing, you know, I don't know. Maybe Anthem really broke me. I can't tell.
Maybe that's my problem, too. Maybe it was Anthem that just crushed my fervor for this genre in general. I don't know. I used to be really excited when new games in the genre were announced, and when I saw this one, I was like, I'll check it out. Like, I just didn't have.
I also didn't like Bulletstorm very much. I've never really liked People Can Fly's take on stuff very much.
They do try to do things that are different. I'll give them that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that like I think that what they do is bad. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
So I am kind of extra skeptical on this one, just because they're not. They don't make stuff that really clicks with me.
Okay.
I'm not.
Bulletstorm was an acquired taste for sure.
I mean, I'm not. Look, I love the "I'll kill your dick" line. That's one of my favorite lines of the generation. But the rest of the game, I did not find compelling at all.
Okay.
Which I recognize as me, because a lot of people love that game. But this would have to have word of mouth through the roof to get me to even really touch it.
Okay. The game is coming to all major platforms minus Switch. They're targeting around the end of the year. We'll see if they make it. They have been working on it for quite a while. They started with the 40-man team, and now since Square Enix is publishing it, they're up to 200 people developing it. So that should help.
Yeah, that's good.
To make sure that they hit their deadlines and get the game out in a decent amount of time.
I wonder, do you think there will be next-gen versions of this alongside those? There would have to be, because otherwise
think so,
it's just going to get buried.
Yeah, undoubtedly.
So, I mean, being the only game of its type on the new systems could help it.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Okay, we're going to move on. We're going to talk next about Baldur's Gate 3. Or wait, we're going to talk about Half-Life Alyx. Yeah. I don't know, my rundown's all screwy. We're going to talk about Half-Life Alyx. So we got the debut trailer for the game, and then it kind of went radio silent. However, the game is coming out in a couple weeks. And so Valve is finally starting to promote the game. And I don't know if you saw it or not, but yesterday Valve put out 3 raw gameplay videos from Half-Life Alyx. We have them here for you. We stitched them all together into one piece of B-roll. It's the first time we've really got a look at how the game actually plays. You can only get so much from a trailer, and these are 4-5 minute chunks of the actual game, what the gameplay loop is like, what you're going to be doing, what the controls are like, that sort of thing. Matt, did you think that this game was going to be kind of a free-moving shooter based upon the trailer and stuff?
No.
Also
just based on VR.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping it might be, but it is not.
No.
It is basically now you can go wherever you want, but once you plant your feet, you're basically stuck there like a tripod. For the best that I can tell, you cannot shoot and move at the same time. They use the teleport mechanic where you just point the cursor at a point on the level and you just zap there and you're there. That should help me with my motion sickness problems.
And although, also, like, there may be a way to change that. Like, I've played games that use the teleport thing that also let you do free motion if you want to.
Do you think they would have shown that in the gameplay?
Not necessarily.
Yeah. It makes me nervous. Now, again, for me personally with VR, because I do get motion sick, it's a godsend for me that that's how they're doing it. I just, as somebody who doesn't get motion sick from
Chat's saying
VR,
it does have free motion.
It does have it. Interesting that they would show this when they show the gameplay for the first time.
Vincent says it's in the second clip.
Oh, interesting. I watched all of them. I didn't see any of that. I just saw them using the cursor. So there's a little cursor that shows your 2 feet, and you point at the ground, and then you just click, and you zap to wherever your cursor was. The game itself appears to be designed for that, though. There's a lot of cover in the game. Enemies tend to stream kind of from the same direction. I did see one case in this B-roll where you're on a train and enemies come in from both sides, but then there's like a quick turnaround feature, kind of like what you see in a lot of old survival horror games, where you can flip around and you can still handle enemies from both directions. But generally, based upon what they've shown so far, it's one of those games where enemies pour in from the same direction. Maybe they take cover as they pour into the area, and then you just kind of have to sit still and kind of pick them off. Now, what makes this game Half-Life is what you're seeing right now. The environmental puzzles. And I think what Valve was doing when it released this footage is it wanted to show players this is the amount of time you're going to spend doing X, Y, and Z. And based upon this footage, it looks to be about a 50-50 split as far as navigating environments, solving puzzles, and combat. The combat, I don't feel like uses a lot of the new technology as well as the puzzle solving does. So when you see the puzzle solving stuff in this, that's where you really see like the new Knuckles controllers like really being put to good use. That's where you see a lot of the motion control stuff being put to good use. In Valve footage, it looks smooth as butter, man. A lot of that Knuckles stuff, like you see it in action, movements look jerky, hands teleport or disappear and then reappear. Now, I'm sure Valve set up ideal conditions to capture this.
Very carefully captured footage.
Absolutely. I'm certain of that, but at the same time, it does. I mean, even when you watch trailers from other VR games, you can still kind of pick up on the jank, for lack of a better word. I don't see any of that in this. And again, the motion controls as far as being able to just move your arms the way you want to reload your guns, to pick stuff up, to pick up objects to solve puzzles. There's some puzzles that are like holograms, and you have to like reorient the holograms in specific ways. And it just, this game, and here's a perfect example of it. This game just really shows off all the new functionality of VR. I don't know if I'm going to be able to upgrade to play it, though. I want to play it so badly, but man, it's just such an expensive proposition. I don't see it coming to PlayStation VR ever because it would not run on it. Maybe PlayStation VR 2 someday. So I don't know if I'm going to have an opportunity to play it. I certainly can't afford to drop a G on...
What do you have? You just have PSVR?
That's all I have, yeah.
Well,
I regret buying that. I wish I'd saved the $400 and put it towards something better, to be honest.
You can come play it on my Vive if you want. Like, I got to hook it up. But I guess I should.
You should, absolutely. We're gonna have to rely on you to play this, Matt, because I can't play it.
God, I'm just not looking forward to.
I think you're gonna like it, man. Once you get into it,
I'm just not looking forward to hooking all that stuff up. The Vive is not a small setup.
Yeah,
it's a whole wires and changing the layout of the room.
I get
the whole thing.
If there's one game that should motivate you to do it, though. This is it. This is it, though. Nothing's going to come along.
Nothing else. Yeah, you're right. Nothing else will come. But it's like it's also not enough for me. Like,
Wow.
I don't care.
All right, do you have a huge affinity for Half-Life?
No, not really.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I like it. I liked Half-Life. I like Half-Life 2. It's not the end of the world to me that it ended. I also am probably a little soured on it because they treated it so poorly over the last, what has it been, 16 years?
Yeah.
I mean, I recognize its importance in the history of things and how it revolutionized how first-person storytelling is done in games. It wouldn't make my top 50.
Wow. Okay.
So
I'm shocked to hear that. I never knew that about you, Kyle.
Portal might, but
Yeah.
Portal would. But
Yeah.
like Half-Life has never been the end-all be-all of anything except like, oh, that's really clever to me. And I'm sure this is also really clever, but I also don't care what happened between Half-Life 1 and 2.
Do you feel like this represents Half-Life? So let's say you take out the character models, the head crabs, and the enemies. Looking at this game, would you be able to tell it's Half-Life watching someone play it?
Sort of. Like the focus on physics-driven stuff and sort of the freedom to put the bucket over the camera and sort of like that sort of stuff is sort of the free-form element that Half-Life 2 sort of pioneered in terms of using its physics engine as well, I think. I can see the pedigree beyond just the head crabs.
Yeah, me too.
But
what about visually? What do you think?
looks good. I mean, slap a screen door effect on that thing and drop the frame rate a little bit. It's like I mean, I'm using an old rig and an old original Vive headset. It's not going to look like this. That's for sure.
Yeah,
it'll look fine. I'm sure it'll be fine playable.
What about this footage though, in particular?
Looks okay.
I mean, can you think of a VR game that looks better?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, I can think of VR game footage that looked as good as this, but didn't look that good when you actually played it.
Which could be the case with this.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean,
do you think
that's not really Valve style in my experience? But
do you think this is a killer app for VR?
No.
I
think it is for a certain audience. I don't think it's a killer app for the mainstream.
You don't think it's going to change anything?
Mainstream doesn't know what Half-Life is.
No, you're right. They don't have no clue. They have no clue what Half-Life is. They probably maybe heard it one time, but they don't know what it actually is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I think the people who love Half-Life probably had Valve's VR stuff on launch day and have probably been hoping and praying for this day for the last 3 years. And it's finally here. So I'm happy for those folks. I really wish I could play it. I really wish they released a 2D version of this game. I get why Valve's not going to do it. I don't even know
what that would be. Like it's so immersed in the VR and motion control idea that I don't know what you do to make this thing playable without VR and without the motion controls. It's a different game.
Yeah, it would be, but I still would want to play it.
I promise you, Alyx makes it to the end.
That much I think everyone knows. Yeah. So yeah, it's coming here in a couple weeks. If you don't have a kick-ass VR HMD, then you're out of luck pretty much. You might be able to make it run on older stuff, but it's probably not going to be the experience that you want. I think particularly what you really need,
nothing on the market is going to make it look like this.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a screen door. There's always going to be...
Yeah. I'm just saying, even some people don't have the controllers to really get the most out of the game. They don't have the knuckle stuff.
Yeah, I don't have the knuckle thing. I just have the original Vive control. I'm sure they're fine.
Yeah.
Probably not as immersive to have the finger stuff, but...
Yeah. Are you glad you invested in the Vive way back when? You got the best that was available then. No, you're not.
I mean, I had fun with it for a year or so, and then I just never picked it up
It became too much of a pain in the butt, right?
Yeah. Honestly, other people had more fun with it than I did. I mean, people used to come over and play and stuff, and they enjoyed it more than I did after a while.
Yeah.
The novelty wore off pretty fast.
Yep.
Because there was no content coming out.
That happened to me, too, with PlayStation VR. I used it for not even the first year, and it was like a party trick when friends would come over for a while.
Much. And I mean, I used to say, at the end of the year when we tried to evaluate all that, the year all that came out, I was like, I would never tell anyone else to buy one of these.
Yeah.
I'm not super sorry I bought it.
You did say that all along.
But I'm like, no, unless you will never, ever, ever, ever miss that money again, do not buy a VR headset. Because it's the definition of luxury item conspicuous consumption nonsense.
Yeah.
So, I mean, games are kind of that anyway, but VR is that times 10 at this point. Maybe not forever, but...
Yeah. One thing I will say about this is when you do get a chance to watch the footage, the atmosphere is Half-Life. Just the kind of the drones and the dirge, sound effects in the background. It's really, really heavy on atmosphere. And I think that, even more than maybe the head crabs and some of the character models, kind of clued me in that it was Half-Life subtly, subconsciously more than some of the more overt stuff. So I'm really excited for it. I really wish I could play it. It's probably not going to happen for me, unfortunately, but I'm very happy for those of you who do get to play it. You invested the money, and now you get to reap the rewards. And I would argue that the people who did invest the money have been waiting a long time to reap the rewards. So the day is coming, people, very soon. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Valorant, or Valorant. I'm not exactly sure how to say it yet. It is Riot's, people are calling it Riot's Counter-Strike killer. We talked about this game a couple months ago. It was called Project A. That was its development name. They've finally given a final title called Valorant. I'm assuming it's Valorant, because I think the Valor in the title is something they want you to...
Or Valorant.
Or Valorant.
I don't know. Like, it could be,
Everyone's wearing like fuzzy shirts from the 80s.
Yeah.
You remember the velour shirts from back in the day? So finally this week, new information came out. They gave out the official title. There has also been a bunch of hands-on previews. There's been a bunch of gameplay that's been released. And Riot isn't the one calling it the Counter-Strike killer. Riot's like, no, this is just our hero shooter. That's kind of what the editors at various publications have decided to call it. Do you see the Counter-Strike? The way I see it as Counter-Strike is the environments look really basic.
Yeah.
That's the only correlation I really see to Counter-Strike.
I mean, I guess you say Counter-Strike because there's a lot of crates, and Counter-Strike is sort of the thing with the most longevity in that space. So, like, you want to talk about competing with, and that's this kind of thing where, like, you know, you're getting rid of the peekaboo stuff, and
Yep.
like, they're clearly targeting it as a very hardcore competitive game with an eye towards esports rather than like, oh, come in and have fun and play Overwatch with us kind of thing. You know, like, it feels like Counter-Strike is the thing that stays, while all these other things sort of pop up and go away, and Counter-Strike is just always here, sort of like Team Fortress 2.
It never goes away.
So it makes sense for a company that defined a genre the way League of Legends did with Riot. Like, it makes sense to me that, like, it makes sense to me that you want to compare it to something that has staying power.
The knife, I think, probably made a lot of people think it reminded them of Counter-Strike. The knife, obviously, a prominent element in Counter-Strike, not so much in most other shooters. Mm-hmm. The new Call of Duty Modern Warfare, melee and knives are a bigger deal this time. There's like these canned animations to like finish people. But other than that, it's not a big element in a lot of first-person shooters. So maybe that angle of it has people kind of interested as well. Also, the guns. It's like a sci-fi game, but the guns are pretty real world.
Yeah.
Like, they're not really like crazy sci-fi guns. It seems like the over-the-top stuff is basically reserved to like your specials. Mm-hmm. And otherwise, you just have typical, assault rifles, SMGs, stuff like that. And again, maybe that's kind of the part that's drawing people towards Counter-Strike, or drawing those comparisons to Counter-Strike anyway. One thing I will say is that Riot is very good at developing characters. So a character-based shooter, they should have no shortage of creativity to make sure they're constantly flooding it with new content. I still would argue that, to me, it would have been smarter if they used the League of Legends roster for this game. I guess I can kind of understand why they wouldn't. But I think it would have made the game a lot more varied. I think it would have created a lot more built-in interest for the game right out of the gate. Mm-hmm. Because Riot's Riot, and a lot of people are going to check it out no matter what. But I think for people who don't care about Riot and don't care about League of Legends, it's going to be a tougher sell. And I don't know. It's their name carries some weight. I just don't know that if it's enough weight to launch a new IP with all brand new characters, particularly when you have this roster of literally hundreds of characters that you've worked on for years and years. And as a League of Legends player, I would love to play a shooter with the characters I play as in League of Legends. So it seems like maybe a missed opportunity to me. The characters I've seen in this so far have not been particularly compelling.
No,
I mean,
we
just watch
Riot can do whatever they want. I mean,
they print money every day from League, but like watching that 5 or 6 minutes of B-roll right there, was there a single character that stood out to you?
No,
me either.
That's not my kind of game anyway. But like, no, it.
But like the first time you saw Overwatch, were there characters that stuck out?
Yeah, but the first time I saw Overwatch was in a more finished state. Like,
that's true.
I don't know how far along this is. I don't know if we're even meant to be judging this on that level. Like, who knows?
Well, once you let the press play it and let them report on it, it's fair game.
But who knows what it's going to look like in the end?
Yeah.
It's also just not my genre, so nothing.
Did you ever get into Counter-Strike?
No, God, no.
I never did either, man. I tried a bunch of times. I always had friends that were like, yeah, let's play Counter-Strike. And I play it for like an hour, and I'd be like, I know, I don't like this. I don't know what it was. Like, I like shooters in general, but it's just never clicked with me.
The closest anything like that I got into was SOCOM on PlayStation
that's similar.
2.
That is similar. Yep. So Valorant coming to PC, it's definitely going to be coming to everything else. You don't make a character-based shooter without putting it out everywhere. That's
Saturation
the idea.
is key.
Yes, yeah. So I'm sure it's going to end up coming to even Switch eventually. But as of right now, it's just being like shown and demoed for the PC. No hard release date yet, although it seems to be farther along than people think, even though most of the previews from journalists basically said, great core, lots of work left to be done. So it is Riot. I would not expect this game to come out until it's crazy polished. So I think hoping for this year is a bit of a fool's errand. I would probably guess end of year next year, middle of year next year.
I mean, they're supposed to do a beta soon, so we'll see something.
The game looks really plain.
Yeah.
And Riot did say that it wants the game to be able to run on, like, nothing. And you can kind of see that.
It looks like it
It
probably
looks
could.
like it could, yeah. And again, that's a free-to-play thing. Like, you got to make sure that it can run on as many platforms as possible because you're not getting that $50 or $60 every time someone wants to play it. You have to rely on them getting hooked on the game and then wanting to spend on microtransactions. So it'll be interesting to watch. I think it's auspicious being able to see the gameplay for the first time. They gave us a couple little snippets when they first showed it, but being able to see a little more, I think the whole idea started to coalesce a little more for me. Still seems weird for Riot to do a game like this, but it has to make other games someday, right? It can't just keep, or could it? It could keep living on League of Legends.
Either that or you can just change it to Riot Game.
Right, yeah. So they're trying.
I mean, I'm looking forward to the fighting game.
Yeah.
But that's a long way out.
And that is League of Legends characters, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And maybe that is a better avenue for them to kind of stretch their...
Maybe, but I mean, that's not even close to alpha.
Yeah.
So that's probably a 2022 game.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
If
Well, they
it's
also
all on
lost
track.
kind of like their lead developer, which isn't good. So that generally means you're setting it back a good 6 months or so. So we'll see. But I think it was an auspicious debut for Valorant. Like, I want to hear more about it. I want to learn more about it. It's going to be free to play, so everyone's going to be able to just, jump in and give it a go. And sometimes that's the best marketing you can get, letting people play the game if it holds up and it's good. So we'll see. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about Project G.G., and that's not for good game.
Not yet. Anyway.
Not yet. I struggle to figure out what the GG stands for. Maybe you figured it out?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, so this is...
There's not a lot of info to go on.
Nope,
on this
there's
one.
not. This is going to be a very short topic, but I want to show this game because to me it looks very cool. This is a brand new game from Platinum, and as of right now it's called Project G.G., and that will change undoubtedly. It's just its working title right now. Platinum has all kinds of crazy stuff going on right now. This is considered part of the Beautiful Joe Wonderful 101 trilogy. Can you see that?
Well, there's like a kaiju element to it, so yeah. It's not super removed from the kind of the Power Rangers idea. It's just a little darker looking.
Yeah. So
maybe GG stands for Giant God.
That's possible.
Or something like that.
It could be, absolutely. What I get from this is Ultraman.
Yeah.
And I realize a lot of people who are watching this probably have no idea what Ultraman... Mitch doesn't know what Ultraman is. Mitch, are you in there still?
Yeah. No, I had no idea what Ultraman was.
He had never heard of Ultraman, man. Are you surprised by that?
Not super surprised, just because like Ultraman is, it's the predecessor to a lot of like the Sentai stuff that became Power Rangers, but it hasn't really had much Western presence. They didn't stop making them. There's Ultraman series all over the place.
It goes on and on, yeah.
And it does look like that does look like Ultraman, but no, it doesn't really surprise me if people don't know that. Like someone younger wouldn't know that.
See,
a lot of people our age don't know what Ultraman is. So.
See, I compared it more to Pacific Rim.
Hey, Mitch, turn your camera on, bro.
Oh, sorry.
Pacific Rim is definitely a descendant of the Ultraman stuff and the Power Rangers stuff, but more Ultraman, Gigantor, Voltus 5, Mazinger kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's where Del Toro's influence came from for that. Whereas the sequel was definitely more Power Rangers-y. and was not as good as a result. But the Ultraman was kind of brought a lot of the Godzilla, what was called suitmation stuff, to television. That was a TV show that reused a lot of the same suits from the big Toho movies. In fact, Godzilla's suit is in a couple of old Ultraman episodes. They just stuck like a sail on his back and called him something else.
Yeah.
We
should be clear what Ultraman is, actually.
Yeah,
He's a gigantic robot.
Robot,
Is he?
sort of.
He's a steel
pretty
man,
much.
I
Like,
guess.
He's a guy. He's a regular guy, usually like a test pilot or something like that, and he has a magic or like super advanced gun, and he basically can use it to shoot himself with a ray that makes him grow to a giant monster-sized metal man who can shoot beams out of his hands and stuff. And he fights giant monsters that are
Kaiju,
here to just I mean, so Pacific Rim is not definitely influenced by
Oh,
it.
yeah. It's like the modern Ultraman.
But it's a superhero thing more than a giant robot thing.
It's true. Yeah.
And yeah, just look it up on YouTube. You'll find some stuff.
There's plenty. There's a lot there.
And you'll suddenly realize how many super moves in JRPGs and stuff are referencing Ultraman and how he moves his hands when he shoots beams out of them and stuff. There was also a pretty good Super Nintendo game.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. It wasn't bad.
Yeah.
It was okay. You got something to say in there, Mitch?
Yeah, I was just going to say, when you told me about Ultraman, it's on Netflix.
Oh.
So if you wanted to check it out, they do have a version on Netflix right now.
Which means there's probably like 8 million episodes to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's been going since the 60s, so...
Yeah.
Much like the Power Rangers, the shows the Power Rangers are based on are older than me.
Yeah.
They've been around since the 70s, have come out a new season every year since then. I mean, the Power Rangers stuff is based on real old stuff. I mean, that's where Voltron comes from and all those old cartoons. The idea of combining robots comes from a lot of that.
How do you feel about Platinum doing a kaiju game?
Cool.
Yeah.
Like, I'm into it. Like,
I'm just glad to see him break out a little bit.
Yeah, do something. Yeah, and it is their own game. I think they're self-publishing.
They
this,
are,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's cool. I mean, I like a lot of what they do, but I feel sometimes they're sort of just, because they work for contracts so often, it feels like a lot of times it's sort of like the problem Nolan North had for a long time, where like he just sounded like Nathan Drake in every game, and people were like, "What's going on?" And it's like he's like, "Dude, I can do any kind of voice you want, but I just go in and they say just do Drake."
They want him to
sound like Drake, and so I feel like Platinum has on this role.
Been doing Drake.
Basically, yeah. People can be like, "Oh, we hired you to make a Platinum game, so make a Platinum game," and like you get like that kind of like.
That's a good point.
Kind of reheated hack and slash game that like sometimes it's inspired, like with Nier Automata, and sometimes it's not. Yeah. And I think
like Transformers.
Yeah. And I think you're kind of seeing or the Ninja Turtles game and stuff like that.
Another one. Yeah.
And I think if these guys can get cut loose a little bit and do what they want to do and do it on their own terms, like that can only be good.
Yeah.
And I love like weird unique takes on the kaiju idea in games.
Platinum's combat with kaiju where buildings are exploding.
And like where in the hell is my remaster of Robot Alchemic Drive, people?
That's not happening.
No?
No. They're too busy remaking Bayonetta for the billionth time.
Robots kill people. A robot killed Grandma.
Vanquish. They're too busy bringing back
these Robot Alchemic Drive on the PS2, people. It was a watershed game for me and no one else, apparently.
Well, I haven't never heard of it, so...
Oh, really? Yeah.
There you go.
It was obscure.
That's why I say look it up on YouTube, because you ain't finding a copy.
Most people call it RAD.
There's a lot of RAD. Yeah, it was abbreviated to RAD here because they didn't trust Americans.
Because we're Americans and we're stupid.
Alchemic.
Yeah. That's why.
But it is crazy amount. It's also hugely long. It's like a 40-hour game. Like it never ends.
I mean, a lot of Platinum's games are way longer than you think when you first start playing them. Mm-hmm. Like the licensed stuff, not so much, but their own games, like a lot of them they're a lot longer than you expect.
Yeah, and they do the kind of the Nintendo thing where it's like, oh, you finished normal difficulty, huh? Now the real game begins. Yeah, kind of thing. It's like so. You usually get your money's worth.
Yep. I'm excited for this. I think it looks awesome.
I do wonder how far it is.
I don't think it's very far.
It doesn't seem...
they haven't announced anything like that. No platforms, no release date,
and
anything.
This is part of their 4 announcements.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right.
Sounds like not all of them are going to be games. Yep. Sounds like they may be doing some other stuff. So good luck, Platinum. Your game looks hot. Hopefully it takes shape, and we'll find out a lot more about it in the not-too-distant future, although I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see anything for a while. Mm-hmm. We'll see. All right. Next, we're going to talk about Baldur's Gate 3. Anecdotally, one of the developers working on this game is on Sifted. He is, I believe, one of the sound guys, and I'm not going to call him out because maybe he doesn't want people to know that. But there is someone on Sifted that's working on this game, and we had known about it for a while. We knew it was coming. The last Baldur's Gate was released in 2000, like November 2000, I think it was. So it's been almost 20 years since the last Baldur's Gate.
Unless you count the Dark Alliance games.
Right, which we won't.
Spin-offs. Really.
Which we will not. And those, when was the last one of those, though? That was like the PS2 era.
That was 2004 was the last one. That was a weird one, too. So I just picked up copies of those two games.
Oh, really?
I realized that I didn't own them. I don't know how that happened, but I picked it. The first one was by Snowblind, which no one remembers anymore. They got absorbed by Warner Brothers, I think, around 2008.
Yeah.
And then they made their own engine for it. It was called the Snowblind engine or the Dark Alliance engine. And then Interplay had contracted, I think it was Obsidian, to make Dark Alliance 2. And they used the Snowblind engine and apparently did not have permission for that. And Snowblind Studios sued them over it, sued Interplay over it. And that's why Dark Alliance 3, in part why Dark Alliance 3 never happened, but also because Interplay collapsed like a fly in a cupboard.
Yep.
And Dark Alliance 3 and Fallout 3 were the two main games that went away after that. So yeah, it's been a while since the Baldur. I mean, there was a Baldur's Gate when they did the enhanced editions. They did do a new module for Baldur's Gate and put that out, which is apparently pretty good. I have not played it. Apparently, the new Baldur's Gate pen and paper RPG module is a sequel to that. Somehow, Baldur's Gate's back in a big way.
Well, the first thing we should have said is it's based on Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
It's D&D.
So it's Forgotten Realms, Dungeons and Dragons, classic. Not the classic setting. That's probably Greyhawk if you're a classic D&D nerd. But like Forgotten Realms is probably the setting of D&D that video game fans are most familiar with because that's the one they make.
Yep.
All the stuff out of. It was also the setting for what was that? Demon's Stone. You remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
Which was also tangentially related to Baldur's Gate because a couple characters were shared with it. Made by Stormfront Studios, I think.
Yeah. So there's tons of D20 dice rolls in this game, and not only that, this isn't one of those games where the dice rolls are going underneath the hood. There's actually like an icon in the bottom of the screen, and sometimes it even pops up in the middle of the screen showing the dice roll.
Yeah, which I think is a direct influence from Divinity Original Sin.
Yep, so that's what these guys made. Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2 before jumping on this. Larian, which is, those are turn-based RPGs. And this is also a turn-based RPG. Some people are not happy about that, Matt.
Because Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 were real-time with pause, like KOTOR and so many other... BioWare games because Baldur's Gate was a BioWare game.
Yeah.
I don't mind the turn-based thing, and in fact, I find the turn-based stuff that Larian has done with Original Sin to be generally a better approach than real-time with pause because I find real-time with pause, while it works, is sort of messy most of the time.
We'll be talking about that actually next.
And and I find it messy and sort of an inelegant solution, and it feels like something that was sort of good enough at the time. But like the original Sin games have expanded on how you can make something exciting and sort of interesting with turn-based so well that I would rather see Larian stick with the stuff they're best at.
Yeah, particularly this developer. It's so good at turn-based combat. Why not let it do what it does best?
Yeah, I think that makes tons of sense.
Yep.
So it doesn't bother me at all.
I think people will get over it pretty quick once they start playing because I'll just tell you right now, this game looks freaking amazing and insane. It is so deep. Like I was.
Yeah. Oh, actually, no, I mixed up. This game is a sequel to the pen and paper module that just came out.
Okay.
So this is sort of the continuation of a new era of Baldur's Gate content that D&D has started to focus on.
Okay, quick story synopsis. You're basically the victim of a mind flayer. It takes control of you and infects you with a tadpole that will turn you into a mind flayer. So you're infected with the tadpole. You're dropped off on this planet. You don't know what the hell's going on, but you land and you know you need to find a cure because if you don't find the cure before you turn into a mind flayer, basically your life is over. Once you start meeting people, the tadpole actually has functionality, though, because if other people have the tadpole, you can do what's called a mind meld with them. And that actually becomes almost a replacement for your charisma stat. So if you have the mind meld ability and you're talking with someone else who also has it, you can actually jump big portions of the dialogue trees. So it's something that could be a blessing and a curse, I guess, depending on your perspective and within the context of the game. But the objective, obviously, is to get rid of the tadpole that's actually like right behind your eyelid, which is really creepy to think about. But the objective is to get rid of it before you turn into a mind flayer. That's sort of the overall goal of the game. Now, that's just scratching the surface on this game. The dialogue trees, the conversation trees in this game are like gigantic. Like some of the options that I saw had like 8 choices to make when you're having a conversation with someone. Larian is saying that all of these are going to go off into places that you want to go, and they're going to support a payoff for this stuff, which is something that doesn't happen a lot with games. A lot of times you go through these dialogue trees and you end up in the same exact place you would have if you chose something else.
Well, this does seem like a good opportunity because there's been elements of that in the original Sin games, but like now that you're doing a license that has some money behind it and that it has, more importantly, like a built-in audience, this is your chance to take some, for a company like Larian, it's a chance to take some risks, expand out some of the stuff they've always wanted to do, and know that no matter what they do with that, it's going to have that built-in audience that will come give it a chance.
Speaking of expand out, much like People Can Fly, once Larian signed this game, they staffed up. And they employed some folks from Telltale. So... probably really good hires for a game like this.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
You want to hire people who only... and this is the mind meld that I was talking about. This is footage of it right here. So that obviously that girl also has the tadpole. And then the dialogue choices are altered because both of you kind of have the mind meld ability.
Yeah. And Larian's done some interesting stuff with kind of the mental power ideas, because one of my favorite... I like the original Sin games a lot, but I also really like Divinity 2 Ego Draconis.
No.
Which was a more action RPG they made, real janky on the 360 and PC. A lot of fun if you can find it. It's also backwards compatible on Xbox One now.
Okay.
But it's an action RPG, and like it's pretty simple and easy. But like one of the tricks is one of the powers you can get is the ability to read minds. And if you're willing to spend like 1 experience point to read somebody's mind, you can sometimes find out important information, or sometimes just find out funny stuff.
Yeah.
It's actually a very funny game, and so I'm actually kind of doubly excited that they're doing this with the kind of the mind meld thing, because Larian has shown in the past that they have a real knack for using kind of the psychic and mind reading powers to enhance what you're already doing in terms of storytelling and character work. So that's a really good fit for them too.
Yep. Terrain is a factor in the game as far as like your elevation. If you're higher or lower than enemies, that has an effect on how the combat plays out. Another big element is what Larian is calling surfaces and statuses. It's a system inside the game. Basically, it's an elemental type system. So they said that if you throw a torch into water, it creates steam. And then that steam has actual physical properties that can either help or hurt you. So steam can burn you. It can actually hurt your character.
Yeah. These are also all in the original Sin games.
Yep.
Like they have the environmental and elemental usage. Like
you can dip swords in fire and they'll catch flame.
It's part of their kind of just their ethos really,
Yeah.
as a developer of these games, and it really works. And there are broken things in the original Sin games that are like, okay, this is the most efficient way to do this, or like poison is definitely better than any other affecting thing or whatever. But it gives you room to play, and if you haven't played the original Sin games, get off your ass.
Yeah,
like,
you can also find them
really
for like
good.
$5 at this point too.
Yeah, on the console they're more expensive because they came out more recently. But on PC you can get them pretty cheap in almost any Steam sale that comes around, or like they go the first one goes on sale pretty hard on Xbox and PS4 fairly regularly. Like they're good. Like they're really interesting takes on this kind of an idea of RPG, and I think anyone who likes Baldur's Gate that has played those knows that like they're probably the number one pick to make this game.
Production values through the roof for a game of this type. Lots of cinematics, lots of fully animated characters. The Telltale folks, a note on what they've been working on. Apparently, some of the tells during conversations are very subtle, like a slight eye tick or jutting the jaw out. Those are things that you're supposed to look for while you're in conversations to try to judge sort of the character and the direction of the person that you're talking to. The systems in this game just run so freaking deep. And basically, Larian said the one thing they want everyone to take away from this game that plays it is the sense of discovery and exploration. So there's just stuff hidden everywhere. There are rewards for poking around and trying to dig stuff up. I love games like that. I hate games where you go off the beaten path and then you're like, why did I do this? And a lot of games are that way. There's like no payoff. You go down this long hallway and there's like one little health thing down there or whatever. It looks like they're going to focus on that.
Sounds like someone's been playing Skyrim.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. So as of right now, it's supposed to release around the end of 2020. They said they aren't sure if it was going to make it.
I think we'll be seeing this in March.
Probably.
That's my guess.
They didn't commit to before the end of the year. They said somewhere around the end of the year.
This feels like a fiscal year.
Yep.
Barrier. Yeah. Like by the end of next March, but it'll slip to February, March.
Probably so. And then the other thing is, it's coming to PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X. Larian claims that this cannot run on PS4 or Xbox One. So,
I believe it.
So this is not coming to either one of those consoles. At least they're saying that now. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually they maybe farm out a port and try to get it running on the other consoles. But for now, this is just PC and Generation 9 consoles. So... and looking at it, I can understand why they would say.
Considering the amount that's going on under the hood here, it doesn't surprise me that you're not even talking about graphically here. You're talking about
just raw
load.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
And you start thinking about all the systems going under the hood. That's just CPU just getting beat up. So
yeah, you need some teraflops, son.
You do. You need at least 12 apparently. So anyway, that's Baldur's Gate 3. I'm really excited for this game. I don't play a ton of isometric RPGs anymore. I used to because they were kind of the genre on PC.
I played a lot recently because of the Kickstarter. The Pillars of Eternity and Torment and Tyranny. Like, there's been a lot of good ones.
There have, yep. So. And it's good to see them coming back. But I'm an old D&D player. This is right in my wheelhouse. These guys have proven that they can make great games in the genre already. I have very few reservations or trepidation about this game. I think it's going to turn out great. It's just a matter of when we get to play it.
Yeah, this will be because I'm pretty sure this is not going to be this year, but I feel like this is going to be a
high contender.
No, I think it's going to be a high pick in next year's fantasy draft.
I think it probably will too. Yep. All right, let's move on to our last topic of episode 201. We're doing okay, man. For time. Yeah. We're doing all right, man. I'm impressed. I'm impressed with us. Our last topic.
We'll see how we do on a
we'll see
week
how long
when
this
3 games come out.
I know. It'll be tougher for sure. Our last topic of today is the Final Fantasy VII Remake. There is a demo out there right now. It launched yesterday. It's only about, I think it took me like 35 minutes.
Yeah, it's about half an hour.
Yeah, 40 minutes to get through.
It's pretty much the E3 demo with, as Mitch said, a couple of things tacked on the end of it.
Yeah. Speaking of Mitch, you played this like 4 times, right? What was your purpose of playing it so many times?
Yeah, so I played it 3 times.
3 times.
So I played it one time through in normal with just using the command system without the hotkeys. So then when I did the second time around, I only used hotkeys for my commands with my ATB bar. And then the final one, I played in classic mode because I was just curious on the significant difference between the two. I preferred my second playthrough with the hotkeys.
Oh, okay.
As more of an action game, it wasn't as breaking up everything. Like, it had a good flow to it overall when I just put everything in the hotkeys. And I also just got better with the combat system in general. So I was kicking ass on the second time around.
I played it once. And for me, once was enough. Man, where do we start with this, Matt?
I played it once too just because I didn't have that much time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
It is. Technically,
visually, it's amazing. Yeah. The difference between the cutscene character models and the in-game character models is almost undetectable. Yeah. Like, it's really impressive.
It's one of the best looking games I've seen.
Yeah. Especially like in terms of the expressions on the faces and like this visual acting on the characters' faces, which is not something you get out of Japanese games all the time.
It's true.
It's doubly impressive. There's a nice moment when Barrett is doing his rant about the environment and the planet on the elevator, and Jesse and Cloud just sort of have this moment where they sort of look at each other like,
what's he talking about?
What's he on about? Which is nice. The music's never sounded better. One of my problems with the original Final Fantasy, I have many problems with the original Final Fantasy VII, but one of my main ones is the music sounds like garbage on that screechy, weird MIDI bank they used, and like bad for that time. Even like it doesn't have to sound like that. And I always thought the compositions of the music in Final Fantasy VII were really good, and so that's why I bought like the soundtrack they did that was recorded by an actual orchestra and back in the day and all that kind of thing. This is, I think, finally the soundtrack done justice.
The soundtrack gets repetitive, though.
It is repetitive, because that's how
it's
RPGs
like that
are.
same like ditty over and over and over again.
But it's catchy.
And
but the opening with the Final Fantasy theme and the infiltration theme and it's all there and it's recognizable, but it sounds like bigger and better and modern, and it's great. Presentationally, this game is almost flawless so far. My main thing is, and I know this is just sort of a Square Enix thing, so like that we've talked about also with Kingdom Hearts 3 a year ago. English speakers don't do that weird anime grunting thing. Like we don't do that thing where like someone says something and we go, oh, or like that. That's that. There's a lot of that in this, and it's just it's like weird little things that don't quite translate. Where like Barrett makes a joke about asks how old Cloud is, and Cloud misunderstands him and says that he's a soldier rank 1 or whatever.
Yeah.
And Barrett's like, oh, maybe your soldier ranks is your age, and you're 1 year old, ha ha ha. And then Cloud's all embarrassed by it. I'm like, no one would ever say that in English. Like that's not a thing anyone would say or do or react that way. It just pulls me right out of it.
I play when I capture
very
footage.
weird.
When I capture footage, I turn down the background music because it makes it much easier to edit with the footage later. And like the footage that I captured of this will end up being used for years. Like when I need something for Factor or any other show that we're doing, and I need B-roll, I'll go to that B-roll that I captured at a really high bit rate, and I'll use that. So I always turn down the background music so you can just hear the voice acting and the sound effects. And oh my gosh, playing this game without no music to kind of cover up what you were talking about, it's crazy, dude. It's just... dude, you're right. Like, it felt... And my problem with playing this is it's hard for me to figure out whether parts of this game were put in there for the people who love the original or not. Now, that doesn't mean that it makes it good or bad. It could make it good or bad to big-time fans of Final Fantasy VII, but it's weird. Like, that in particular, it just stands out like a sore thumb, and it makes me wonder if it's just completely intentional. And they want to have kind of those callbacks to the older games.
I mean, probably like I've talked to a couple of like voice directors who work in anime dubs, and I've asked them how. I know the actors you use don't have to sound like that, so why do they sound like that? And the answer is always, that's how people who consume dubbed anime expect it to sound. Like you're basically literally making it bad on purpose because that's the style people expect. I think, and I can accept that in something like a Tales game or something, a very anime-looking game, like RPG is fine. This, even Kingdom Hearts to some degree, but this like doesn't look like that. It looks photoreal in places. The production values are so high. To me,
stands out.
To me, still using that style of voiceover, or not even voiceover, because the actors are fine. It's really a style of voice editing, and to use that in this with the production values as high as they are is like if you recorded the soundtrack with MIDI again.
Yeah.
The world has moved on.
It stands out.
Make it match the quality of the rest of the product and stop kowtowing to people that like shitty things, basically. Like really, if I'm just being straight up, you want this thing to sell 10 million copies instead of 5? Make it so like it doesn't feel embarrassing to play it in front of other people.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yep.
Because the rest of it isn't. The rest of it looks great.
Yeah. Let's talk about the combat. So as Mitch mentioned, there are several ways to play this game. There's no one right way or wrong way, I guess. I played with the default, which is basically real-time combat with pausing. So the square button is just your hack and slash button, for lack of a better phrase. And then if you want to pause time and use spells or special abilities, you tap the X button. and that pauses time. And then it brings up a menu, and you can select from your spells, you can select from your special abilities. Additionally, you can use the triangle button to kind of go into heavy attack mode. You do a lot more damage that way, but you can't really move. You're almost like a tripod. So you have to make sure that you don't enact that unless you're close to enemies. Otherwise, it gets very awkward when you enact it and there are enemies like 20 feet away. And then you can play it in classic mode. As Mitch said, you can set up hotkeys, so you don't have to use kind of the stop and pause menu that I use.
Yeah, I switched to using like the shoulder button shortcut stuff pretty fast because the hitting X and switching through all the menu stuff just felt like it was stopping everything dead. And
it's also how you cure with potions.
All the momentum went away, and so I just started using the hotkey shortcuts much more. Except when if something was I need to make sure I get this right or whatever, I do that. But because to be fair, it doesn't play itself. You can miss with your abilities and stuff like that. So it's.
I mean, the auto lock's pretty generous. I don't manually use the enemy focus.
No, but by default he does lock on. Whatever's and actually, if you go in I don't know why this isn't the way it is by default. If you go in and you can turn on I think it's free combat or free combo or something. You turn that on, you can control the direction he attacks in mid combo with the stick. He doesn't lock on sticky the way he does normally. You can play it almost like Devil May Cry.
Okay.
You can direct him in mid combo and mid slash, and it feels like a much more responsive action game, basically.
I feel
I think that should be on by default. I understand they're limiting that because they want it to be simple for people, but it feels so much better when you turn the free combat on that it was night and day to me. If you didn't know that was there, it would be worth playing it again just to put that option on and see how you feel about it, because it makes it a much more naturalistically feeling action game.
Now, even playing on the default setting as I did, the actual hacking and slashing feels really responsive. I feel like when I hit that button, that action is there and it's lightning fast. However, we talk a lot of times about relaying the sense of impact in video games and how it's this kind of weird, nebulous, intangible thing that you don't know how to do it, but you know it when you see it. We talk about headshots in loot shooters a lot of the time. Some are very satisfying, some aren't. In action games, there are some games where it feels very satisfying to hit something with a sword, and there are other games that don't necessarily relay that. I would argue this game does not relay that back well. The combat, again, responsive, but I don't feel like I'm doing what I'm seeing on the screen. Did you feel that way at all?
I felt like the feedback on hitting things was pretty good. I felt like I didn't have a lot of feedback when I was getting hit.
That's true.
That's true.
That's a good point too.
Not so much in the final boss battle, because when you're getting hit by that boss, it's really obvious because it affects your balance and
it blows you backwards
down and stuff.
Yeah.
But in kind of fighting the standard enemies, I had lost more health than I thought I had several times. I'm like, oh, that was way down than I thought it was. So I felt like I didn't get a lot of feedback on when Cloud was getting hit, but I did feel like my feedback on hitting them was pretty solid. I could tell when I was hitting them, there was a marked difference between when I was doing a lot of damage and not doing enough damage, so I needed to switch to the punishment mode. It was, I felt like it was pretty close to there.
Okay.
Especially once I turned the free combat thing on.
Interesting.
Maybe that really shifted, because I felt less locked into sort of what I had to him automatically focusing on enemies and sort of not being able to pull out of a combo and sort of redirect him if I wanted him to go attack another thing that was about to hit me. I felt like I wasn't getting blindsided as much because I had more freedom to decide where my attacks went. So I thought that improved just the feel of the game tremendously once I figured out that option was there.
And I honestly didn't have problems with playing it on the default setting. I kind of liked that mix of real time and turn based. Once I got used to it and I got good and I kind of knew how many times I had to tap down to get to each spell and how many times I had to tap down to get to the potions, it didn't bother me that much, and I liked kind of the strategic element that pausing it brought, because you could hit the X and it doesn't stop time. It just slows it down drastically. So there's still a little sense of urgency there. But then you actually have time to kind of look at each enemy in your field of view and kind of assess which one's the bigger threat, which one you want to use your magic on. So then you unleash your magic, and then maybe you go to the other one and you use your sword. I kind of enjoyed the way that they had it set up by default. But I am going to give the other ways a go as well to see if maybe I like them more.
But that's why I love this combat system so much. When they announced this at E3, offering the choice, I think, is something that fans probably wanted for a long time, because they wanted turn-based or they wanted full action. This kind of gives you an option. If I want to do full action, I can go all action. But like you were saying, it gives you an opportunity to be strategic. So it kind of marries the two, and I think it's a great way to try it. And if it works out really well, who knows? It could go in the future games.
Yeah, and then some of the bigger enemies in the game, you can't really topple them unless you use magic. I wasn't using it that much, to be honest with you, just on the fly, fighting rank and file enemies. But some bosses, you have to hit them with a specific element to kind of stagger them or disable them. One of the mini boss needed a fire spell. This end boss that we're about to see here in a minute needs the thunder spell. So you do have to keep your eye on that. You also have to swap characters pretty frequently. Like during this one boss fight, if it picks up your character that you're playing as, you have to switch to the other character very quickly to try to get them to release the one that got picked up. So there is some kind of on-the-fly party mechanics.
And here you see that, you can't reach this guy without Barrett, because Barrett's ranged, and Cloud can't touch the turrets on the ceiling.
Yep. Although he tries.
He attempts it.
There's a section coming up here where the camera just goes completely bonkers.
Well, you can use fire, and it will reach it.
Yeah, your spells do have a range.
With Cloud, you can do a spell, and then
but I don't use spells unless I have to.
I didn't use them at all until I needed to, and then once they told me, I started using them. But yeah, it's not necessary. You can play this game. It seems like what we've played so far, just using your sword.
I do feel like the camera's too close.
Well, you can see here where the camera just goes bonkers.
Well, not even just this, but I think just running around, I felt like the camera's a little claustrophobic.
Well, the other problem too is that sometimes the game takes over the camera to show you something the way it wants you to see it, but it still lets you have control of the camera. So it'll start doing a pan, and I can manipulate it and it gets. There's some awkward stuff in here with the camera for sure.
This is one of the weirder things in here, and I'm obviously not a Final Fantasy VII purist, because I don't particularly like the game in the first place, but one of the weird changes here is that in the original game, they plant the bomb, they fight the boss, the bomb has a timer on it, and they have to get out before their bomb blows up and destroys the reactor.
And here you can choose how long the timer is.
You could do that in the original too.
Which he does say something different, which option you
the
choose.
trick here is, in the original, the bomb works. In this, the bomb doesn't work. And the reason the reactor is destroyed is because Shinra blows it up themselves. They basically cause their sentry robot things to shoot their lasers everywhere and destroy the place, even though the bomb that Avalanche sets doesn't go off. They think it does. Yeah. But it felt like a weird change to make sure our heroes aren't actually terrorists or something. It felt like a weird thing to do to make it Shinra's fault, instead of there's a moral gray area in the original game, which I hate giving the original game narrative credit for any of this stuff, because I think it's a terrible story for the most part. Yeah. But that part was interesting. They never followed up on it in any interesting way. But the idea that you started out literally as a bunch of eco-terrorists and not really understanding whether they were good or not, or correct about what they believed or not, was an interesting hook for the beginning part of the game. And with that gone, with this, it makes me wonder what the new hook is. Yeah. Is it just Shinra's bad? I don't know.
I'll be honest, the writing and the plot in this were big turnoffs for me. I think the writing's terrible. It feels like it's written for a 5th grade level. I don't know. The voice acting was a turnoff. If I were going to play this for the story, I would not be very excited to play it, or the voice acting, or the writing. I would be very excited to play it. But I actually just enjoyed playing this, believe it or not.
I mean, it wasn't... Yeah, it wasn't that bad to play. It makes me wonder how you sustain this combat system over 40 hours.
It's not very deep. That's the problem.
I assume each character is going to have their own permutation of how this works for them, and so you're going to have to want to switch between them for particular enemies. I assume at some point there will be bosses that... because clearly they're not afraid to change up how the bosses work, because the boss in this doesn't work exactly the same way. I mean, it's recognizable as the boss from the original game, but it's not the same fight. I can see places where like you have to switch intelligently between the different characters because they have different abilities that can get you into the weak spot of this boss, and then you have to switch over to this other character that would be the best one to attack them when they're staggered, that kind of thing.
Well, you also notice that the ATP bar doesn't go as high if you're not controlling that character. So the strategic switching of characters probably is what you need to do to be able to maximize the what the enemy is weak to.
Yeah. The combat just to me just doesn't have enough depth. It's like you have one button that you hammer for most of your attacks, which is a square. And there's kind of auto combos that fire off. And then if you want to do the bigger attacks, you hit triangle. And that's pretty much it. So you just end up spamming square for the most part during combat. And then when you're ready to unleash your more powerful attacks after you've staggered an enemy, then you unleash with the triangle attacks. But overall, the combat isn't that deep. So you're right. While it did pacify me during this 35 or 40-minute demo, I do wonder when you're talking about 40, 50 hours, if there's going to be.
Yeah. I mean, the hope is that it opens up more as you move forward and gain more diverse characters.
Yep. So are you more excited to play the final version or less excited to play the final version after playing this demo?
I mean, about even.
Yeah.
I would say.
I would say it's about what I expected.
Yeah.
I mean, I had also played this before.
I expected kind of a permutation of sort of Kingdom Hearts meets Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah,
and
that's a
it's
good
pretty
way to
much
describe it.
where it is.
Yep.
I mean, the combat is vastly better than Final Fantasy 15.
Oh yeah.
But like, yeah, it's about where I thought it would be. I had hoped that the voice editing would be a little less anime dub, but I mean, it is what it is.
That's a good way to put it, I guess.
But other than that, presentationally, it's
gorgeous,
amazing.
Yeah.
I do wonder about obviously it stops at it only covers Midgar. It's part 1 of whatever. Even though the box doesn't say that.
It doesn't. Yeah.
Red 13 is not playable. Red 12, whatever. I don't remember what his number is. The cat isn't playable because you don't get to him in this version.
Well, yeah.
Makes me wonder when the next one will be.
Yeah.
It's just it's such a big question mark. Like, will they finish this in time to have it even end on PS4 as well as PS5? Well, it's a weird situation to be. It's taken so long, but I'd say for the most part, I think if you were really invested in looking forward to this, it feels like it's delivering exactly what they said it was going to be.
Yeah, I think hardcore fans of Final Fantasy VII probably are splooging all over themselves over this demo.
Judging by how angry they are at Chris Kohler, yes. that is definitely happening.
Mitch, what about you? Are you more excited for it or less excited for it now that you played the demo?
I'm actually more excited because I liked how the combat system was shown at E3 last year, and to now actually get hands-on with it, and it's everything that I was expecting it to be in that aspect. And I do like the slight change in the story. Maybe that's going to play more into Shinra and give them a little bit more hardiness to that part of the story so it lasts that 60 hours.
Okay. So there you go. That's the Final Fantasy VII demo. The last look we're going to get at the game before it comes out, probably. And it's not long. It's a PS4 exclusive still. Rumors are swirling that it's going to come to PC. They've been swirling for a while. We've got no official confirmation of that. To me, it would make more sense on Switch, but obviously that game's going to have a lot of problems running on the Switch hardware. So for right now, PlayStation 4 exclusive, if you don't have a PS4 by now, and who doesn't at this point, and you're a big Final Fantasy fan, might be time to go try to find a deal over the next couple weeks. Just keep an eye on our deals channel. We always curate any deals for
what is
hardware.
It, April 10th?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you got about a month and a week to go. That's enough time to find yourself a cheap PS4. Maybe you can find one on eBay or something if you're really excited to play it. I am going to play the final version. So it wasn't to the level where it turned me off so much that I lost interest in the game. Mm-hmm. There are elements of it I don't like. There are elements I was pleasantly surprised by, like the responsiveness of the combat after Final Fantasy 15 was a pleasant surprise for me. Technically, I knew it was gorgeous already. Seeing it running in real time, like instead of at a trade show, like on my own TV with my own surround sound, definitely made an impact. Gorgeous game. Still lots of mystery left behind this, which is good. A lot of times, if we're talking about a game a month before it comes out, we know everything already.
Yeah. I'm also interested in, like, to see sort of this story play out with competent presentation, because the original was such a kind of bridge game between
like a Frankenstein almost.
Because they hadn't gotten away from this. Like that opening scene with Eris, and I'm going to call her Eris because that's what her frickin' name was when I played the game in 1997. And I don't have a lisp, so I'm not going to say Aerith. When she gets up and leaves the leaking Mako area, like it never came across to me in the original game that she's supposed to be like reacting to anything.
Oh.
Because they were just big eyes with no mouth. There was no expression. There was no real way to tell what anyone was thinking. And just the ability to see what's happening on their faces as this stuff is going on is already an enhancement.
Yep.
So I'm interested to see kind of how this story plays out with a little more verve in the production value.
Absolutely.
I mean, even Final Fantasy VIII was better at that because the characters looked like human beings. So
yep, it's true. All right, so that's it for the Final Fantasy VII demo. It's time to get to some Q&A. If you guys want to ask us a question live on the stream, make sure you go at Sifted Games in the chat. It'll make it a lot easier for us to kind of pick out questions from you guys. Just as we wait for some questions to roll in here, a couple notes. Pactor Factor is changing drastically. I've mentioned it a few times. We put up the last episode of Pactor Factor, as you guys know it, this past weekend. And from here forward, Pactor Factor is going to be basically daily. We're going to be publishing 4 episodes a week. It's just going to be one topic per episode. We get a lot of complaints from people saying, I don't want to watch a full episode of Pactor Factor because there's always a question or two that I don't care about in there. This is going to give you guys the opportunity to watch or not watch whatever questions of Pactor Factor that you want. It's also an opportunity, obviously, for us to keep regular content flowing through the site. Like I said earlier, a new episode of Sifted HQ went up today. Hope you guys like that. And those are going to keep rolling. And there was a new segment in there this week that wasn't in the one before, and it's going to keep going that way. There's always going to be something new in Sifted HQ. You never know what's going to be in the show. One other final note. If you are watching this on YouTube and you're a fan of Pactor Factor, if you're a Twitch Prime subscriber, you now get Pactor Factor a week early. So there's incentive now other than just trying to help us out. You'll actually get Pactor Factor earlier as if you were a patron. So there you go. Let's see if we got any questions in here. The first one, how appropriate, Matt. Well, actually, there's a bunch up here, but I want to ask this one first because you were just talking about it. Congrim 1, are either of you guys going to play Grand Blue Fantasy Versus?
Yeah, I wanted to play it
tried.
for this week, but they didn't put it up for pre-order on PSN. It went live to buy for the first time this morning at like 8 a.m., and I didn't have time to play it then.
Yeah.
So I'll talk about that next week.
Yep, it'll be on the show next week for sure, which is, for those of you who don't know, it is a fighting game set in the Grand Blue Fantasy universe created by Arc System Works, the same team that did Dragon Ball FighterZ. So pedigree there out the wazoo. It's been flying under the radar. I have a feeling once it comes out, it'll start building some groundswell.
Yeah, at the very least, you'll see a lot of GIFs because it's a beautiful game.
It is gorgeous, absolutely.
Or I would say go watch Sifted HQ, and you might hear about that game on there.
You might, absolutely. Let's see. ETH Demon, Larian Studios being such a good fit for the return of Baldur's Gate 3. Name and explain. You sound like a teacher. Name and explain an old IP with a current studio you think should do it and why. So an old IP, but a new studio.
And a currently existing studio.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Let me think. Let me think. I go to this a lot. But I'm a big fan of Tribes, and they tried to revive Tribes a couple years ago. It was a pretty poorly failed experiment. So I would love to see a big shooter studio like a Bungie or a Treyarch or one of these, or a Sledgehammer, any of these studios that are making really good first-person shooters. I would love to see them take on Tribes because I already think Tribes is like one of the best shooters ever. And it was made by this little small team. So I would be interested to see what could become of Tribes if it had a big budget and it had really good developers behind it.
I would like to see Double Damage Games, which made Rebel Galaxy and Rebel Galaxy Outlaw, be given the X-Wing and TIE Fighter license.
Oh, that makes sense. That'd actually be great.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
Can't believe we still don't have any of those games again. Even just remasters. EA.
Yeah.
Come on.
The hype train's up to level 4. We're getting close. We're 22% on level 4. Commander Fett, would you ever want to partner with someone like Easy Allies and help make content and promote each other? Of course. Of course. We're open to working with anybody, to be honest with you. Any publication that wants to do any crossover, if they want to come on our shows, they want us to come on theirs. We're all about reaching new audiences. And while I would say that probably most of the Easy Allies audience is aware of Sifted, there's probably a lot of people there that aren't. So yeah, absolutely. I would love to work with either of them. We've obviously had Brandon on here. We've had Bloodworth on the site before. They've never invited me to do anything, though. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe you should ask them.
Garage is only so big.
Yeah, apparently. Well, they're not in garage anymore. They're in a gigantic studio now. From SJD Swanland, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the Valiant comics, Matt, but are there any characters or series like Bloodshot, Harbinger, or Exo Man of War you would like to see brought into video game form, and how? I may have asked this before, but I forgot. I don't think you have, actually.
No, I'm very familiar with Valiant. That was hot when I was working in the comic store when I was a teenager. I mean, the Valiant character that was brought into video game form the most successfully is Turok.
That's right. I forgot that was a Valiant
Turok,
comic.
the dinosaur hunter,
Yeah,
comes from Valiant.
Yep.
I mean, Exo Man of War did have a video game crossover with Iron Man on the Saturn and PS1, which was not a great moment.
I do not remember that.
Those things clogged up shelves for years. I remember they were clearing those things out on Saturn. Like those are some of the last games left to be sold off for Saturn in
like Madden 64.
Yeah.
Just every used store you go to, there's just piles of them.
I mean, I think there's probably room for a good Exo Man of War game. It's just I don't know who would care. Like maybe
it's not an IP that people are familiar with.
Maybe there's a window here that could happen if the Bloodshot movie is a successful venture here with Vin Diesel. The fact that they're making a movie out of a Valiant character and it's Bloodshot is mind shredding to me. Like that is crazy that Bloodshot is getting a goddamn movie. Like I can't.
I just can't.
Yeah, I mean, I like Valiant. I reread them read them all a few years ago. I don't know. Like, I think Turok has already sort of won that fight. I guess you could make a pretty good Ninjak game if you just made like a Tenchu game with a Techno Ninja.
Yeah.
It's all there. Armorine. There was an Armorines game on N64.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
That was Valiant.
Well, I didn't know that was based on a comic.
Yeah.
Wow. I can't believe you pulled that out of your brain. Armorines. That's impressive.
I put a lot of Valiant comics in bags and boards in my lifetime.
J Reed Vic 7, thank you for Twitch Prime, brother. Appreciate it. Here's a question from Bobby Budnick. If you had to put a date on it, when do you think Horizon Zero Dawn will be out on PC? Also, could you see other Sony first-party titles released for PC, say a year after launch? Yes. I mean,
I wouldn't say a year. I'd say longer than that.
No, less. They did Death Stranding's coming out like
Death Stranding. This is a weird scenario. I don't see. Here's the. I think
that blow your mind how early it's coming out on PC?
They must have seen the marketing forecast.
I mean, they must have. Yeah.
And then I think Horizon's happening because of the same engine.
Yeah.
I don't know if this signals a sea change toward putting big name PlayStation exclusives on PC.
I think they all are going to come. I think you're right, though. I think the exclusivity period will be longer than Death Stranding for sure.
Longer than a year. I don't think you're going to see God of War or Spider-Man on PC.
Yeah, there might be certain properties.
Like, who's going to make that?
Yeah.
Who's going to port that? Who are you going to trust to port that? If you don't put, then the main Insomniac and Santa Monica have better things to do than put up ports of a PC version that's going to sell 200,000 copies. Like this is not.
Well, some of their games have an opportunity to sell more than that.
Not too much. PC sales are not. They're not console sales. That's one of the reasons
it's
they don't
hard
care.
to know because they don't. A lot of the sales aren't tracked.
They're tracked well enough that we know they're million sellers on PC are uncommon.
Yeah.
Unless they're exclusives, unless they're very PC centric ideas.
Yep.
Horizon Zero Dawn, my guess would be this fall, somewhere kind of alongside the PS5, maybe.
Sound Wizard again. Thank you, man, for giving out all these gift subs. You are the frickin' man.
So I would guess we'd see the PC version of Zero Dawn this year, late this year.
That's what I would say. Yep. Q4. Wolfox 10C, predictions for the Resident Evil 3 demo date drop.
Mid-April.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
That makes sense. I mean,
I have absolutely no proof of that, but I'm just saying mid-April.
when you think about the timing of the game's actual release, yeah, it makes sense. I'm sorry, Mitch, you say something?
The game's out April 3rd.
Oh, it is?
Is it that soon?
Yeah, because it's 7 days after that, it's Final Fantasy, and then 7 days after that,
Well, then maybe next
we were
week.
going to get,
It may be, well, like in 2 weeks, I would guess.
I was going to say 3/3, like March 3rd, but we passed the 3rd of March.
That's
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. That did make too much sense, though, Mitch. You're right.
You have 10 hours to change my mind.
Not Cirque. Going out to LA tomorrow. What are some good barcades and gaming centers?
Go to 82.
Well, right here.
No. There are no pinball machines
There
here.
aren't. Yeah.
Go to 82
Yep.
downtown.
Yeah.
A lot of good games, some fun, like weird drinks, and huge pinball selection.
Yeah, which is always ace for me. That's what I go to arcades for, because that's the one thing you can only get at arcades still.
Yeah, there's also if you're willing to go outside the city, like a little bit east into San Gabriel Valley, there's a giant arcade center at a mall east of the city called Round One. Tons of stuff, like huge like old style arcade, lots of imported Japan only like rhythm games and dance games and stuff. If you're into that kind of thing, go check out Round One if you have a car and the ability to get out east.
Yeah. Look, if any of you guys ever come to LA, let me know. Send me a DM. I've already met with many sifters who have come to LA for vacation or whatever. We go out and we have lunch and we talk about games and we have fun for a day. I'm always down to meet you guys. So if any of you guys come to LA or you know you're coming to LA, give me a heads up. DM me on the site and we'll get connected and we'll do lunch or something. Emperor Dread, what D&D megastars do you reckon will appear in Baldur's Gate 3? Drizzt, Elminster, Lolth?
I mean, I think we'll definitely see Drizzt.
Yeah,
He's kind of a staple of
Yeah.
the Baldur's Gate games.
Yep.
As like a bonus character or a cameo.
yeah. Wolfox and West, another one of his. Matt, are you going to check out Neo 2?
Of course.
So Neo 2 is a part
I don't know
of
if I'll
Sifted
finish
HQ today.
I don't know if I'll finish it, but I'll play it.
Yeah, thank God. Mitch likes it too. I do not have to jump on that grenade. I'm very happy about that. Again, Sound Wizard, thank you, man, for all these subs that you're giving out to our crew. It's really awesome. Big Dave Lazard says RE demo on the 13th.
Friday the 13th is a pretty good guess for that.
It
Next
makes a
actually
lot.
good
It
idea.
does make a lot of sense. Yep. Aussie Brit 2000. Thank you for Twitch Prime. It's awesome. I think that's it. Yeah. There's a couple other questions, but Jay Reed Vic says there's a sale on Amazon right now for a PS4 bundle with God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn for $268.
Yeah.
That's a deal.
Can't do better than that if
yeah.
you need a PS4 for Final Fantasy.
Absolutely. There you go. I'm assuming that's on Sifted. I did not do any curation today.
Although if that's a vanilla PS4, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If I was going to buy a PS4 now, it would definitely be a Pro.
Yeah. But if you can get that for $260 and the Pro's like $350 with a game or whatever, I'd probably go with the base model.
I would never go with the base model.
Well, if you're getting in this late,
yeah,
I don't know.
I want the performance. I don't know what Final Fantasy VII is going to look like on a vanilla PS4.
Yeah.
That thing's pushing some polys.
Yep. So let's see how we did. An hour and a half. I said an hour to an hour and a half, and we got it about an hour and a half. I'll take that for our first foray into making the show shorter. I did see some comments from some people are upset that the show's going to be shorter. Some people are excited that the show's going to be shorter. I would say it seemed like more people were excited it was going to be shorter, although it's close. And look, you guys aren't going to really understand the true power of the changes until the games start coming out and you can start watching our deep dives. And we just aren't having releases yet. But trust me, the way we're going to handle our deep dives are going to be way better than the way we handled talking about games for 30 minutes on GameFace. Just trust me on this one, people. They're going to be worth it. And you're still going to get an hour and a half out of us every week here as well. So thanks to everybody on the stream for hanging out. Thanks for Sound Wizard for giving out all those freaking subs. As I said earlier, if you subscribe via Twitch Prime, you get Pactor Factor a week early now. That's a big deal. That's a big shift for us. Pactor Factor going daily starting next week. There's a new episode of Sifted HQ up right now. We're going to have an episode of Spoiled later in the week. Hopefully you guys are seeing all the changes that we've made are for the better and for the good, and you're enjoying them. So on behalf of Mitch, who's on shower duty, and Matt, Kyle, I'm Shane. GameFace is up and out.